So, Eamon, you just asked me, can I say wanker on Crime World? And you can't say wanker. And there's not the reason you're asked that, of course, is because there's a great line in a court case you covered there recently involving a guy called Michael Stokes, who was up in the High Court in a case brought by Cab. And after it didn't go his way, he could be heard muttering wanker as he left the court. And of course, the Sunday World being a family newspaper with, plenty of murders and all of that, we do protect our readers by putting it in, is it an asterisk?
An asterisk, yeah, but you've only put in one there. I mean, I'm going to have to bring that up now with the editor later. There should be two asterisks there, because now it looks like he muttered Walker.
But he could have. So it's an exclusive on Crime World that he actually said wanker.
Yes, and it was hissed is probably the best way to describe it. No, he wasn't happy. This guy Michael Stokes, he's 29. He's based in Cork. And basically, Cab had brought a case against him and his partner at the time that this BMW car, I think it was a 3 Series worth, I think there was a 40,000 price tag on it, and there was a Caravan that was as well for 13,000 that was originally part of the order, but apparently that had been sold before the order was actually sought. So there was a bit of back and forth about whether where the proceeds of this Caravan sale went to. And essentially, Michael Stokes hadn't really engaged with this case up until the morning of the hearing last week, in which case there was an affidavit filed just in time, which was it wasn't a full defence either. It was just claiming that some of the money from the Caravan sale went towards the car, which didn't really help because it was a circular argument that he didn't address the point where did the money for the Caravan come from in the first place, which Cab's contention was it was coming from his criminal activities, which they were suggesting was kind of theft, handling stolen goods and burglaries.
And I mean, they're not shy in these affidavits, the Cab, like they very firmly sort of suggest or say clearly that Stokes had an extremely high level of involvement in criminal activities, really.
Yeah, I think, some of it was read out in court, and they talked about extremely high levels of criminal associations and kind of the usual thing that they'll often say that, somebody has X amount of convictions. In his case, it was 15, and they say they don't believe it reflects his true involvement in crime. He's linked to what they described as the Rubber Riley organised crime gang. So there would have been people from that group we've written about and done interviews with. I think Pat certainly did one with one of them some years ago. They have a notorious reputation for not aggravated burglaries, but kind of sneak thefts where they go into hotels or wherever. And unusually enough, it's not just the men. Some of the women were quite active in it. And I think it was mentioned in court last week, like his mother, is a link to the Rubber Rileys, which provides him his link. And that in one case, they had been staying in a B&B in County Roscommon, close to Castlereagh Prison, where they were there to visit a relative in prison. And the owner discovered that €15,000 had been stolen. So that was a night he was staying there. So this is all part of the case against him to show his kind of involvement in crime.
I mean, the Rubber Riley gang would be a lot of them based in kind of Wexford area, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would have been, yeah. And then now Cork, because, I mean, they've been involved in various feuds as well. I mean, they've been, I think, a certain group of them have been living in Kildare for quite some time, but, since moved on. Like, they tend to be kind of, some of them tend to be quite volatile. There was certainly one of them, Rubber Ogue, years back, was involved in there was an ongoing feud in Cork City, and a gun was produced and pointed at a guard. Now, this is going back 20 plus years, I think, at this stage. It's a long time ago. But there was always that kind of streak of recklessness and madness, I suppose, about it,
But Michael Stokes, of course, is described in court as well as one of the main instigators in this other sort of recent outbreak of feuding in County Cork. Yeah,
and they mentioned like there was some of these kind of, I suppose, these social media posts where, they're kind of call-out videos or whatever, and there was some of these that were made by him, and they were saying were made in the BMW that was actually at the centre of this. And, he described as being volatile, and they linked him to kind of in one case, a machete and a petrol bomb attack in the city. He was described, as you say, as the main instigator. And then there was another attack on a house that they linked him to, in which, weapons were used. But obviously he also found time to make money. Like I don't think there was any history of social welfare. Yet the 200,000 of lodgements were made to a bank account linked to them. So like there was money going through. They were making money. Put it this way, but there was no sign of any employment or any other kind of legitimate income.
No,
and I suppose their argument in the one affidavit he did put in, well, actually, it wasn't in the affidavit. Their counsel went to make the argument that this couple, they'd been up trading their vehicles, and the initial purchase was part funded by a personal injuries payment, which is again something we hear regularly in cab cases, that I got my money from an insurance claim. But the judge says, I'm not listening to that because it's not an affidavit, therefore it can't be accepted as evidence, because that's the way they work in kind of civil cases. Evidence. It's not like you sit up at the in the witness box and swear in the Bible and give your spiel. It's got to be written down and filed and copies sent to various places so that everyone knows exactly what's on the table, and the judge gets to read it and makes his decision. And sometimes, unfortunately, they get to an interesting part in the affidavit in court, and the judge says, "Yes, I've read that." Right. Okay. Just as your pen is poised. So it's frustrating that you don't necessarily. You have to go. In
fairness to the judge, he always gives a good quote, doesn't he? Judge Owens, is it? Judge Alex Owens, isn't it?
Alexander's Own,
He gives a good quote here. Is there any evidence he's done a day's work in his life? No.
He answered his own question in that one. And he was talking about the money churning around the bank account for years, and there was no other source where the money for the caravan or the car could have come from. And he basically accepted the Criminal Assets Bureau's belief evidence that, as he put it, the information pointed towards criminality such as burglaries being the sources of money. And he said there was no evidence to support the logic that personal injuries award being the source of the funds. And their social welfare records, couldn't account for it either. And he was satisfied they'd been living off cash proceeds of burglaries and other activities. So the car was actually, it's a 221 reg BMW. And that was already in secure storage. So sometimes they sell them off quite quickly. Yeah. And the money is lodged in, separately. And then on the basis that these kind of, the vehicles can depreciate quickly and lose their value. So it's a way. So if you do win your case, you don't get a 2-year-old car. You get the cash back of what it would have made at the time. So you're not losing out if you do win your case, which it doesn't happen too often, to be honest. Once they get past Section 2. So I mean that was pretty much that was it. And then when he was walking out, he made his remark. But before that, I think Cab for Counsel kind of brought it to the attention that there was an attempt. They suggested that. They said it in court that Michael Stokes had tried to record them and that the guards had stopped him and taken him out and they'd taken the phone off him.
Was this in the court building or actually?
No, this is actually this is when counsel for Cab were on their feet talking, making their case to the judge. So I mean, as you know, it's contempt of court to record or take photographs or anything inside any of the high courts. It seems to be a rule of thumb. I think theoretically a judge can say, yes, you can film away or you can take pictures, and everything is recorded anyway on on what's it called, the DAR,
the digital audio recording. Yeah.
And you can get that. And funny enough, in this case, his solicitor said something to his own counsel. Presumably, there were instructions that they wanted to get a DAR of the judge's final judgment as well, because he delivered it there and then. Sometimes he said, "Well, I have to think about this," and he'll go off, and it could be 2 months before you get a 26-page written statement. But sometimes he deals with it straight away when he feels it's an open and shut case, which obviously he thought it was in this case. So he was saying, like, well, that's contempt of court if someone's recorded. Of course, delete it. So I mean, that was the end of that. I don't think he was too interested in dragging him back to apologise to the court and make things worse, possibly.
It's not a good idea, though, to record in court. I mean, they do take it really seriously, but it's sprung up. I think they do it. They've been doing it in the UK as well, and maybe they're not as strict there. But the Irish courts really don't like it.
No, they don't. And there was there a case in Limerick not so long ago, last year or something like that, and it was kind of brought up then in as part of someone's sentencing. It can land you an extra bit of time, or it certainly it can undermine your mitigation, saying I'm really sorry and I'm remorseful and all the rest. But in the meantime, if somebody's filming a witness and sticking it up and saying this is what the lawyer is saying about me, it's not going to help your case, really.
No, presumably is the only purpose of it is to put it up on TikTok or whatever. I can't think of any other.
Well, I'd say there could be an element of ignorance about it as well. Like, you know, I mean, some people might be their first time ever in court and decide to do a little bit of filming without realising that they're potentially going to find themselves in Mountjoy for the evening if they don't.
I suspect it wasn't Michael Stokes' first day in court nonetheless, but it certainly wasn't a good day for him.
No, it wasn't.
Okay, thanks very much, Eamon.
That was a pleasure, Niall.
I'm Nicola Tallant and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.